This podcast is brought to you by the Irish Quarter Horse Association, an organisation committed to promoting the principles of Western-inspired horsemanship in Ireland. Whether you ride for pleasure or competition, whether you own a quarter horse, thoroughbred or any other breed, we believe that these principles can help you develop a deeper understanding of your horse and improve your riding skills. So, whether you're a seasoned rider, a recreational rider, or just starting out, we invite you to join us on this exciting new journey. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and stay tuned for future episodes featuring some amazing guests. Thank you for listening, and let's get started. So, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us again today on the podcast. So today we have a man who needs no introduction, the one and only Monty Roberts, aka the man who listens to horses. As many of you know, Monty is renowned for his trust-based training methods such as the join-up. So Monty, can you explain the concept of the join-up and its significance in the world of equitation? How does it contribute to better communication and partnership between horses and riders?
Yeah, and before I get square into that one, I want to tell you that horses have a language. Mm-hmm. All the flight animals have a language. And if they didn't have that language, they wouldn't be around. And many of them are not around. As we look back through the caves and the drawings, a lot of them have been eliminated from the face of the earth because they didn't have a particularly effective language. So most people in the horse industry before my time would say, come on, horses don't have a language. We know that they can't speak English or any other language. I never said that they could speak English. Mm-hmm. I never said that they could speak any other language except their own language, and it's all a gesture language. And that all of these questions could have as a part of their answer the same darn thing about learn the language equus.
Okay.
And the language equus as we know it with horses, and remember that this morning I was with my wild deer, and it's 52 years that those wild deer have volunteered to teach me their language because they're 10 times more flighty than the horse. Mm. And if they're 10 times more flighty than the horse, they charge you a big price when you get it wrong. So learn the language of all flight animals. In fact, learn the language of all animals, because dogs and cats and all animals have a language, or their species would not be here with us.
That's very true.
The horse, it's a body language. And here's the words they understand perfectly well. Not words written, not even words said, but words gestured. Number one, friend or foe. They have to be making a decision as to whether you are friend or foe before they make any association with you at all. Oh no, Mr. Roberts, you can rope them and pull them and them do it. Yes, and that's been for hundreds of years, even thousands of years. But more effective is to show them that you are a friend and not a foe. The second one, predator or prey. They will eat you. A lot of species will eat horses. Mm-hmm. A lot of species will eat cows and sheep and pigs.
Very true.
The next one is safe or unsafe. That's pretty simple. They have to decide when that animal is coming toward them to do whatever they want to do. Are they safe or unsafe? The next one, mother or not mother. they have to, as babies, understand who is the mother, or they die. Next one, herd member or not herd member. They treat the mothers of the herd differently than they would a lion or a wolf, a jackal that eats their meat. They have to know, is it a member of my herd or not a member? Even non-member horses have to be recognized as not a member of this herd. Next one, 2 legs or 4. They have to know that if you have 2 legs, you probably eat horse meat. And we did.
True.
Well, not so long ago, not so many, generations ago. So 2 legs or 4. And then one of the most important ones, is this fun or not fun? Horses love to have fun. Watch them in the herd. Watch my deer in the herd. They love to buck and play and run in circles, but only if they qualify on these words that I'm giving you. If you're there and you don't qualify, they don't play and have fun. So is it fun or not fun? The horses that are winning world championships are having fun.
That's very
Whether
true.
or not the person is doing everything right, they've learned how to have fun with that person. Do they have wings or no wings? Wings are important because if we go back in history, it's the meat-eating big eagles that were very dangerous for the babies. I won't bore you with any more of those things, but learning the language equus goes at the top of the list of all of these questions.
Yeah.
You've asked me now, how does it contribute to better communication and partnership between horses and riders? And that's join up. And join up is simply a method by which you cause the horse to want to be with you instead of away from you. You cause the horse to join with you. And you can hit him on the nose when he gets there if you want, but that won't cause join up. Then he puts you in a different category. Remember their language. And you square up on them and look them in the eye. Wrong. They'll want to go away because the predators square up and look them in the eye. The mother doesn't do that. But when a stallion comes in to steal mares out of a herd, his nose comes out, he looks them straight in the eye, and he herds them away from him. So they run away. Join up is critically important if you want to be a partner with your horse. Is that okay for the first one?
That's perfect. And that's very true. Partnership is so important in this game. And now for our second question, many equestrians, both experienced and novice, admire your methods. How can your concepts benefit young equestrians who are starting in their journey with horses? Are there any specific aspects they should focus on when applying your techniques? So we've already spoken about the language and communication. Is there anything else on top of that that you'd recommend?
If you know the language, and that's what I said about these questions, we're going to repeat ourselves often because the language equus and a non-violent approach are the two things that apply to each of these. And so this question is answered by the fact that join up, follow up, being fair, no violence, no pain, no striking or squaring up and, cursing them out in a way, mostly not by language, but by our body language, is against question number 2. And join up, follow up, and understanding the horse's needs. is the answer to number 2.
Very good. Okay, so for number 3, in your experience, do you believe most behavioral problems or vices in horses are connected to poor horsemanship or that lack of communication and understanding their language?
Well, first of all, do I believe that most?
Okay.
Most is spelled wrong here. It should be A-L-L.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah, good point.
And that's the only answer to this question. Every student should realize that all of your behavioral problems or vices are contracted by horses with poor horsemanship, by poor horsemanship. So each of the things that we answered about the first 2 are applying to the number 3.
Definitely. And is there any specific stories or points that would illustrate your thinking? Let's say, have you experienced anything in particular, any vice in a horse that was brought on by lack of communication or pure communication?
Yes. On question number 5, I'm going to get to a couple of horses there that I was going to explain to you. And this particular question, number 3,
we can leave the examples till later if you'd like. That's not a problem.
Yeah, let's go to 4.
Okay, we'll go to Derek now. He's going to ask you the next 3 questions.
Hi, Monty. It's Derek Byrne-White here.
Hello.
I really appreciate you joining us in this podcast. It means an awful lot to us, as we're trying to get what we call Western-inspired horsemanship established in Ireland in a formal way as well, and that's the purpose really of this meeting. I'm a huge fan myself of groundwork with horses, and I concur completely with you about the importance of body language here, and the importance of putting yourself as a leader to a horse rather than a boss. So my question is for groundwork plays a significant role in your approach to horsemanship. How does good groundwork contribute to fostering better leadership and understanding between the horse and the handler? And what are some of the fundamental groundwork exercises that you would recommend for horse owners to establish a solid foundation?
Well, please take any student you want, experienced or inexperienced, any student you want, and say, what's the first thing I should learn about communication with the horse? Should I jump on his back and start using my legs on him? Should I stick a bit in his mouth and start pulling him around? No. The first thing is what he sees when you're on the ground with him. And you want to make these first 3 questions available to him. Yes, I understand your language. No, I realize you're a flight animal. I realize that if I cause you pain, you'll want to go away from me and you won't want to cooperate with me. So, roping the horse, throwing the rope around a post and jerking the horse to the ground, as they did in traditional horsemanship and still do to this day in many, many parts of the world, is dead wrong. The horse is broken, not trained. The horse is broken, just like we broke our wives in the caves. And they would say, stop beating me. I'll do anything you say. I'm broken. That is not a relationship. That is a slave-master relationship. That is not a productive relationship. So the answer to this question is that groundwork is the first step in the understanding of horse and human in the whole world of training. Groundwork is critically important. Now, as we have students come in and they say they want to learn to ride, so we throw them on a horse and we start teaching them how to ride. What we should do is first teach them how to do groundwork so that they understand what's going into the horse's brain while they're in the saddle.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help with this question?
It does. I coach myself, and there's always something the girls know here because I've worked with them, is that respect has to be earned, and it's so easily lost. And this is why I promote the use of groundwork, as you've got to establish yourself as a leader, to be so that the horse feels safe and comfortable with you. And if you get a reaction away from you, that you should back off at that stage, because we don't want a reaction. We want an effort by the horse. Your work
Right.
has a profound impact on the training community. Can you discuss some of the stories or instances where your methods have transformed challenging or misunderstood horses into cooperative and willing horses?
Yeah. Do you know the word thigmotaxis?
No, I have to say I don't.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Isn't that amazing? It's the most important word in all of horsemanship. Thigmotaxis. Thigmotaxis is the study of what we do under pain.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
So if we are a human, here we are sitting humans, and we touch a sharp object or a hot object, what do?
We recoil.
Pull away.
Yeah.
You go away. That is negative thigmotaxis. What does the horse do?
Pulls away.
Both.
No. Horses are positive thigmotaxic. Think about this one. You lead the horse through a narrow door, and the horse happens to get a little bit sideways and hits his hip on the door. The next time you lead him in, what does he do?
Refuse, more than likely.
He hits it harder.
Oh.
He won't go away from it. He'll hit it harder. And pretty quick you get a call, and they say, I can't take my horse in the stall. He won't go through a narrow door. And that's where all the problems occur. Oh, I shouldn't say all the problems, but that's where most of the problems occur, in the starting gates of races.
Oh, yeah.
They're narrow. And the horses lean on the rails because they're positive thigmotaxis. And they can be taught to be negative, like we are. I have developed a pole called the top pole training off pressure pole. Horses are into pressure animals. You have to train them off the bit. Their first intention is to run into the bit and pull it. And we have to train them off of it. We train them off of it without even knowing that we're training them off of it.
That's true.
But horses are positive thigmotaxic. This question about what horses, I'm going to tell you that I had a call while I was in Germany one time about a horse called Pakistan Star. Pakistan Star belonged to a Pakistan resident that moved to Hong Kong and had made a lot of money in casinos and bought this young horse for $30,000 US. And Pakistan Star. And they raced him for 3 times, and he could really run 3 races. But all of his training was traditional, okay? But he's winning, so what's the difference? And then all of a sudden, he was in a big race, 440 yards from wire, from the finish line. He stopped on the lead, and he stopped. And they couldn't move him. And the trainer ran out on the track and started beating on him with a whip. And he wouldn't move a foot. And finally took the jockey off, took the saddle off, and led back to the stable. And then, of course, The trainer was questioned by the stewards and so forth, and they said, you're going to have to pass the tests. And so they put him through some tests in sort of trial races, and he passed the tests. But he got into the next race with a big purse, and when he got to the quarter pole, he stopped. So I get a call, and I'm in Germany. And a lady was there riding for me called Joanna Lowe's, and she's in Wales, and lives in Wales and has training there now. And she was riding for me in Germany, and she was doing my emails, and she said, you got an email, and this is the horse, and this is what they want to know. And I said, get out of here. She said, they want to give you $5,000 for one morning. They'll pay your trip to Hong Kong, and you look at the horse, and if there's some way you can save his life, they're going to put him down because he can no longer be raced. And I said, I don't know the first thing about a horse that would stop at the quarter pole. I never saw it before. I can't go and take $5,000. She said, Monty, the guy wants to pay you $5,000 in American cash. Just go and get the money, look at the horse, and you might see something that will help. So I agreed, and I flew to Hong Kong. I spent 24 hours in Hong Kong, saw the horse in one morning, met with the stewards, and I told them exactly what was wrong. I didn't know I could do it. But I watched the videos, and I found that at the quarter pole, all the whips come out. And this horse had been whipped a lot in the traditional process. Now there's whips all around him, including on the rider on his back. And he said, no, I'm thigmotaxic and I'm going into the whips. I'm not going to move. I'm leaning into the whips. So a veterinarian, the trainer put his finger in my chest and said, I don't need any California horseman to come here and tell me what I know what this horse needs. And I said, if you know what the horse needs, give it to him and then you'll be fine. And he said, no, he needs a bullet between his eyes. And I said, no, that's not me. You're not putting a bullet between his eyes on my recommendation. You can fix him if you take the whips away and show him that you're not going to hit him with a whip. So they had whips with the grooms. They had whips with the hot walkers. All the whips had to come away from that trainer. That's a deal we made with him. The whips have to come away. We trained for 2 months with no whips, and I got my 5,000. I could have told that man to give me 10% of his future earnings, and he would have said, sure, there's no future earnings. But I gave away $400,000 or $4,000 to get the horse to win $4.5 million. He's retired now in He's retired now in Australia, and he's a gelding. They castrated him thinking that was part of it before I got there. So I had a gelding.
There are probably many people that can reflect on that. Many years ago, when I was very, very young, I used to ride a racehorse in a point-to-point, and this horse had a notorious thing of on the second circuit, he just raced to the car park. He had enough at that stage. And the exact same situation occurred. Basically, it was at the point of where he was being pushed and whipped to finish off the last 2 or 3. And the horse just got to a stage, says, no, I'm going home now. It didn't matter where the jockey or what the jockey did. The horse just went there.
If you stop and think about it, if I'm right with their language, they don't want to be hurt. And they're positive thigmotaxis, so they tend to go into the hurt rather than away from the hurt. And so that's why I developed this thing called the giddy-up rope, which is made of soft cotton rope and braided so that it just goes flip-flop, flip-flop, and it doesn't cause any pain. But
Yeah.
it is invasive behind them, so they go away from it. It's invasive as if a predator would be. There is another horse I was going to give you called Pakistan Star, who was in England, in Newmarket, in training there, and who was banned from racing because he went in the starting gate and would sit on the back of the starting gate, and when it opened, he wouldn't go out.
Yeah.
And so they whipped and whipped and whipped, and he just kept pushing on the back. And I worked with him for 1 week, and he turned around and we went off to the races. But I had a blanket on him that caused him not to go into those rails and lean on them with positive thigmotaxis. And the Monty Roberts blanket is still being used around the world. And the Pakistan Star was the first horse to wear that. And he won the race, and my life changed. That was way back in the 80s. And so we can go to the next question anytime you want.
Yeah, just from my point of view, equine safety is a critical concern, especially for young riders. How can your principles help ensure the safety of both rider and the horse? Are there specific techniques that young equestrians and their partners, trainers, should prioritize for safe riding experience? Just as an addendum, we do our little clinics here as well, and this is something I'm always explaining to people, is that they're not aware of the horse's body language, which brings us back to the first question, really. They're not reading it, and a lot of the problems associated with the safety is relating again back to this equus language.
Yeah, and I with this one, question number 6 is answered by question number 1.
Yeah, I agree.
Question.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
they do.
We're only
they
repeating
do join
yourselves.
up, they learn the language equus. They do
Yeah.
join. They get on the backs and they continue the join up. They take pain and force out of the picture, and it's the same as we answered in the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, now we'll move to Alice, and Alice has a couple of questions for you.
Yeah, so Monty, many equestrians are interested in the emotional well-being of horses. How do your techniques contribute to the mental and emotional health of horses, and what signs should riders look for to ensure their horses are content and stress-free?
And I'm looking at question number 7 for that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to be repetitive, but join up, follow up, learn the language. It's the same thing back to question number 1. No violence, no pain. That doesn't mean that you can't push a horse away from you and jump away and so forth. I don't mean for you to be in danger with the horse, but learn the language, take away violence, and ask the horse, please don't tell him you must.
Okay.
Okay. I'll move on to the second question. So, as an advocate for gentle and empathetic horsemanship, what advice would you give to young equestrians on developing a deeper understanding and connection with their horses? Are there any key principles or values they should keep in mind during their journey?
The language, non-violent.
Go back.
You know, even down to the fact that I say, when the horse has done something really well and you're on the ground, rub him between the eyes. Just stand in front of him and rub him between the eyes and watch him lick and chew. And that means the adrenaline is leaving his body and he finds his mouth to be dry, so he licks and chews. Don't slap him. You see people go a clean round over the fences and then stand up in the stirrups and slap a horse on the side of the neck. Each slap, as the hand touches the horse's body vigorously, drives the adrenaline up. They spark from that. That's not a reward. Actually, horses will try to learn our language, and they will somehow get it that that is a reward. But you have to do it over and over again for a long time. If you just stand and rub them with both hands behind their ears, up and down the neck, it's 90% more effective than a slap ever was. Okay?
Yeah, because that is something that we teach people that do come to our clinics. We that is something that we've started telling them, you know, you don't need to smack the horse, you can just give it a rub. But everyone's initial reaction is to, oh, you done a good job, pat, pat, pat. And it doesn't help. What we were getting there, we're trying to change the mindset here for that. But I'll move on to the next question. So in your opinion, what role does patience play in effective horsemanship? Can you share some tips for young equestrians on how to cultivate patience when working with horses, especially during challenging moments?
Yeah, I think you already know that I'm going to say learn the language, take violence out of the relationship, ask and you'll receive, don't tell, and a demand. No demands. That doesn't mean that you can't use that giddy up rope to send one forward faster, but not causing a stinging pain that puts the horse's brain in a bad position for you. Violence is not the answer. And violence will generally get you a mean stallion because they will go into that violence, not away from it. So I know that I'm answering this question pretty much the same as I've answered several others, but that's just the way it is. I have learned this over the decades, and remember that my father hated me for it. He believed that you had to be violent. My first trip to Brazil, I had a phone call from an owner of a newspaper there that said if I ever came back to Brazil again, I would be arrested. She had a standing order with the police departments of the major cities in Brazil to arrest me if I ever came back to Brazil. So I didn't go back to Brazil until recently when a student said, I've been through all of that. I've gone to this person. I've talked to them, and they want you to come because so many people learned from the trip that they wanted to arrest you for, because they had people there demonstrating the awful horsemanship that I call traditional, and they were beating the horses on the ground and everything. And when we got there this time, I found that my largest audience before going to Brazil on this last trip just a month ago was 7,000 in Germany. And in Brazil, in a town called Barretos, I had 32,000 people come in a big stadium to see my work. And not one negative article has been written, and I wasn't arrested. So the world is changing, and it's changing fast. And I just bought yesterday some kind of a new computer that Pat's learning how to do. In the last 6 months, it's had a lot of advancements where I can just talk to it and advise the world as to what's happening in various parts of the world. And the world is changing, dramatically changing. And some of the places that don't want any violence go overboard. Oh, a horse shouldn't have a saddle on. It's painful. Well, that's ridiculous. It's not painful at all. When they get used to the saddle, it's almost that they invite the saddle. The same with a rider. So long as there isn't a sharp pain associated with anything you do. I wear spurs. I wore spurs for 11 world championships, but my spurs were covered at the tip with a molten rubber that hardened about the size of a golf ball. and was soft. I still have them. They were sitting right behind me in this room. So, you know, you can direct, but not demand. And that's the answer to this question and so many of these questions. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we'll go back to Derek for the final two questions.
Yeah. Well, the last, question 10 now, you've actually answered some of that one. Because I would completely agree with what you're saying there, but a kind of a message, how can young equestrians stay informed and adapt to these changes that we were talking about while still upholding your principles?
Yeah, you know, I'm going to give you my new name. I've taken on a new name.
Okay.
It's Henry. And I've taken on that name because I discovered that I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And if you look back in history, Henry Ford was very important.
Yeah.
And he made a car that you could drive, not with horses pulling it. It had a motor in it. And he called it the Model T. That's about what I have reached, is the Model T. And every student of yours can learn how to go on by that and learn more. Every day I'm learning more about what horses want from us and how they will perform better. So I'm just Henry, and it's a Model T. The Monty Roberts method is a Model T. And there will come people that will understand my methods and say, he's right, no violence. And then I would do this, and then I would do that. I don't know if it's equipment. I don't know if it's the contest that we have with them, altering those things. You know, in South America recently, the main contest for the vaqueros was to stand on the side of a narrow runway, and they ran a mare down the runway, and they rolled a rope out and wrapped it around, roped her front feet, and then they wrapped it on the saddle horn, and when she hit the end of it, she did a somersault. And that was one of their principal contests in all of the horse shows they had. Well, that isn't an advanced technique. They broke legs, they broke jaws. 52% of the horses in South America died in the breaking process before my time. Wow. And Adolfo Cambiaso is the leading polo player of the world, now retired, and his son is #1. But they took on my concepts about 15 years ago, and not one horse has died, while 52% of them were dying in the breaking process. So now he can spend about $100,000 for better breeding because they don't kill the horses anymore. Wow. He told me that in his operation of about 200 horses a year being broken, or we say started instead of broken, but 52% through a scientific study were dying. So he couldn't afford to pay a lot of money for them. Too many died. Now he can pay whatever he wants. And polo has gone up and up and up. And it's the first discipline that went completely non-violent. Okay?
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
The last question.
The last question, the Irish Quarter Horse Association is actively working on a groundwork course aimed at the underrepresented communities and disadvantaged individuals, with a goal of making equine education more accessible and affordable. We call it HELP. Given your expertise in groundwork and horsemanship, do you believe that elements of your training concept could be integrated into this course to enhance its effectiveness, provide valuable skills to a broader range of aspiring equestrians? And if so, which aspects of your approach do you think would be particularly beneficial for these participants?
Well, obviously, I think you already know that I would say join up,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah,
I
I
would say
agree.
learning the language equus. I would say removing all violence from the training process. You know that if you see, as I sit here, if you don't do it my way, you're wrong. Well, that sounds very bad. But
Yeah.
in fact, if you use any former methods that had anything to do with violence or demand, it's wrong. The horses are telling us it's wrong. The disciplines are changing. 5 of the top 10 in the Quarter Horse Association for the Rein Cow Horses of the United States, 5 of the top 10 are students of mine that learn every drop of what I have. Ron Rawls, 3 world championships. Philip Rawls, his son, 2 world championships. Zane Davis, 2 or 3 world championships. It goes on and on. There's a lady that I worked with her father, and the father taught her. I didn't meet her. And she's now one of the top 5, but using my concepts. No violence. For rein cow horses, they run 40 miles an hour. They slide to a stop. They spin 3 or 4 times in both directions. But then you can put the reins down and they just stand there. You couldn't do that when I was showing. My horses couldn't do that because I hadn't learned enough at that time. But these 88 years have been productive in my education. And remember that I have 2 doctorates in behavioral sciences. And Brigitte von Reckenberg was the first professor to give me a doctorate at Zurich University. And I was teaching her students about this nonviolent approach. And then it went right through the whole university. And I have to tell you that there were many people in the university that said, nah, come on, we have to do surgeries on these horses and we just do this and do this. You can do surgeries and be kind. We have surgeries done and nobody hits us on the head or puts a chain over our gums to get us to do the surgeries. So you can do it. And so I think this last question has the same principles involved. And if you move away from the concepts that I've learned as basic concepts, no violence, learn the language, you're on the wrong path. And that's my opinion. You're on the wrong path. But if you stay with what I'm saying to you, they'll do better for it. And your students will do better on the horses for it. I hope this has been a productive time. I hope that you can use these few answers, because I've already given you 2 or 3 answers for the 11 questions or so.
Yeah, but to be honest, you can never really hear too much. As they say, you can never get too much of a good thing. And I think you can never hear too much of the right thing, because as you say, Monty, things might be changing, but there's still a lot of bad horsemanship out there. There's still a lot of horses out there who are suffering. So yes, we may say the same thing over and over again, but I think we need to keep reminding people that this is the future. This is the way to go. This is how we need to work with horses.
Yeah, and we're probably out of time now, but I just want to tell you one thing, and that is that I do a lot of work still with Mustangs, and I do courses where we use Mustangs for the students. And one of the things that I do with the Mustangs is to put them in chutes. It's a narrow place they have to go in, but we do not touch them. We breathe them into that narrow space. And what we do is, when they enter that narrow space, we breathe very relaxed. When they exit a narrow place, we take our breathing up. And when you take your breathing up, they look for a place to go. And they go back to that narrow place because your breathing got better when they went in there the first time. And pretty soon you can breathe all of your Mustangs, 5 this week and 10 the next week or whatever. You can breathe them into the chutes. But in Holland, they're saying, oh, this is a terrible thing, putting those Mustangs into the chutes. They look like they're in jail. They think they're in prison for life. Well, that's ridiculous. And I say, yes, okay, they're in this narrow place and that's all they can do. But then once they're closed into this narrow place, you can go up and touch them. So you tell me what the alternative is to first touching a Mustang. If I send my students in there to touch a Mustang that's not confined in this place, they're going to get kicked in the head and they're going to die. I can't have injured students. So I learned the chute system to protect my students. And I would ask those people that would condemn this to give me the alternative. Do you rope them and tie them up so they can't kick you? Or what is it? No, they're free, they're loose. And generally speaking, in 1 or 2 trips to the chute, we can put a halter on them. And once the halter's on them, then we start the process of being a partner with them. And I can cause Mustangs to accept human beings, including the saddle and the rider and everything, in a matter of days. Those people that would put down the chute would take months to do the same thing and would be in dangerous positions several times in those months of work. So I'm just trying to be the best friend of the horse and to give the horse the best chance. Gives us the best chance too.
Yeah, definitely.
No, that's really appreciate your time in all of this. There, we have some shared friends, by the way. I had Al Dunning here in Ireland doing a clinic.
Oh yeah,
and Tom Foran, also who Irish background, and Craig Johnson also too, who's an admirer of your concept. We've had quite a few here. One of our biggest challenges is to try and put, because equally as you talk about the traditional way, I use the term colonial way because of the cultural influence in Ireland, that it was very regimented, be the boss. And I'm trying to tell people, look, no, there's a more modern way and more subtle way of training and working with horses. And this is why we're trying to develop a course, not just about riding. It's before you ride this horse, you've got to earn the respect of this horse. And this is why I wanted to involve get your opinion on the matter, because I can talk all day. But it's better when somebody else with your profile there can swing around and say, absolutely right. I used to know a guy called Franklin Levinson from Colorado, a great horseman, and he always talked to me about the body language, and he always said, it's a dance. The better the partnership, the better the leader, the better the whole thing. And that to me makes sense, doesn't it?
Oh, it certainly does. It really does. And in all of the real highly placed champions, you will find some of these things in their processes. Generally, they didn't live long enough to really take it further like I have. But here I am at 88 years of age, and I showed my first horse in competition when I was 4. So I didn't have, and also, I think one of the greatest attributes to my upbringing was a very violent father that broke 72 bones in my body before the age of 12. That's only been noticed now with x-rays that and MRIs that can show when that fracture occurred. And my 72 fractures occurred before pubescence. So before 12, I had 72 fractures.
My God.
And I'm still paying a price for those fractures. Last night, I had 1.5 hours of sleep. Last night. And my left shoulder is shattered, and it was shattered before I was 12. And so I've lived through all of these. I won a world championship in bulldogging. I won a world championship in roping. And that shoulder was busy in both of those, you know. So
I would imagine
we can do it under any circumstances you want to mention. But the better we get at it, the less violent it is. And you'll see that over and over again. So it really, really pleases me to hear about Ireland doing quarter horses, because quarter horses, you know, they've been my family. And thoroughbreds have been my business. And quarter horses have been my family. And show jumpers, I was in Madison Square Garden in 1950, and I won the horse mastership. And that was with 6 disciplines you had to do: gaited horses, and show jumpers and hunters, both show jumpers and hunters. And then stock horses and trail horses and things like that. And then 3 days of written examinations. And that was a very, very good time of my life. And the fact that I won it in 1950 allowed me to be a judge and to be a participant in the rules and regulations by being on the boards of those organizations. And of course, I didn't get everything I wanted, and it's been slower than I would have liked to have had it happen. But in fact, I think today at 88, I can say it has happened, and that the worm has turned, and the world is changing. And those people that were continuing to use violence are not doing as well as those that have given it up.
Yeah, I would completely concur with that. Well, certainly on behalf of the Irish Quarter Horse Association, I want to thank you so much for your time. My best regards to Pat, because we did speak on the phone. I believe there were some Irish connections there as well. So there's a welcome on the mat, as we say over here, when you're visiting again. We often have IQHA professionals visiting us here, and I always take them on this cultural visit or tour, private tour around Ireland. And should you find yourself this neck of the woods, like I said, there's a welcome on the mat.
Well, just remember that I have a mat too. And you're not 88 yet, so it's easier for you to come over here. But you know, I appreciate that, and if I can get back there, losing the Queen was my last trip to England to the funeral. But without the Queen, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He's the one that brought the outside world into this cowboy's life. And she didn't care. Did you know that I'm sitting here with my uniform on?
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No.
In 1996, the Queen had Princess Margaret there with her. And we were launching my first book. And she had us come to Windsor and do our whole thing. And I had a cutting horse with me and a reining horse with me. And then we had horses from there with me to demonstrate these things. And Princess Margaret kept asking questions. And every time the Queen got a question from Princess Margaret, she would come to me and ask me the question. And of course, when I'm talking to her, I would take off my hat. That's what you're supposed to do. And about the third time she came, Pat was with me. She came walking over, and I took my hat off, and she said, "Monty, not all men have to take off their hats when they're speaking with the Queen." Well, I said, I didn't know that. I was told that I was supposed to do. No, you see these people around here that guard me and the military people. When they're wearing a uniform, they don't have to take off their hat for anything. A uniform, the hat stays on. And I said, yes. And I looked down at my clothes and she said, Monty, I dubbed this your uniform. So, this is my uniform as dubbed by Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah.
Very
The
good.
only uniform that a cowboy has ever worn that was dubbed by the Queen of England to be a uniform.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So, should we address you in the future as Sir Monty or Sir Harry?
Oh yeah, she did knighthood. It gave me a knighthood, you know. I'm a member of the Victorian Order. And she
Oh yes, yes.
yeah, she said Sir Monty. This is Sir Monty when she would introduce me to people.
Well, Sir Monty, once again, on behalf of all, I would like to say thank you. This was an incredible interview, so enlightening and so much wisdom. And we just really thank you enough for taking time out of your morning to talk to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's been a pleasure for me too. Ireland is a very special place for me. And I had some wonderful times in Ireland, including that crazy horse that they brought to me down in the south of Ireland somewhere. What was his name?
Oh, I can't think of it, but I know what happened afterwards.
He attacked a man at the Dublin Horse Show, and
yeah.
put him in the hospital. He almost died, and then they had him in a stall where they didn't have to go in, and he wouldn't allow any human being. They put him in a round pen, and they didn't tell me about this. And I stepped into the round pen, but my rider said, "You be careful for this horse. He's got a bad reputation." And I stepped in, and here he comes, and I slammed the gate closed, and his teeth hit the gate like that. And this horse I roped. And I roped him, and when I roped him, oh my God, he had never felt that before. So he kind of went into a shell, you know, and I started rubbing on him. And then I did join up with him, and I had a rider on him. And the next day, a lady was riding him, and he went on to be on their Olympic team, and was sold to Australia to be on the Olympic team down there. They had gelded him, but he was still a mean gelding. He was quite an education for me, and God has been good to me, providing me with this information, and it often comes to me in the middle of the night when I think of something I should have done with a deer. Grandma taught me that my eyes, snapping my eyes toward her eyes to rub her on the shoulder, would cause her to bounce away from me. And it took me 2 months to learn that don't look at your hand when you're putting it to the shoulder. If you snap your eyes like that and look at your hand, boom, she's gone. So then I went to the round pen and started using my eyes the way I should have used them with the horses. And my horses were much better after that. Snapping your eyes onto the eyes of a horse says you're a predator. And they will regard that. But anyway, it's great to have been with you. And if I get back to, I will definitely step on your doormat.
Thank you so much, Monty. And likewise, if we find ourselves on your doormat, we'll be sure to knock on that door.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you so much, Monty.
Okay.